Hello students, let me introduce myself. I am Dr. Smita M. Patil, teachers at the School of Gender and Development Studies, and today we are going to discuss this topic, gender nature of the family law. Now why it's important to study the family laws, and the aims and objectives are to understand how these laws in fact during the colonial period frame, and the acts, how it differs. Because the family plays a significant role, and if we really look at the ways in which that the composition of the Indian society, you would see that the different people from different religions live together, and then eventually one is going to go and see that how these debates have been taken forward. So even though the laws are very complex, I am going to tell you very simple ways in which that how one can look at these debates carefully. Now, as I said to you, India is a country where the people belong to a different faiths and religion, and it has a composition of the multicultural society in nature. So every rights, the rights of the every citizens are granted by the Indian Constitution, even though, but when it comes to the the family laws, the personal laws matters a lot. So however, when we study the family laws from the gender perspective, we can see that personal law plays a significant role, which I already told to you. So the personal law is governed by the various sets of laws that includes family matters such as marriage, divorce, succession, adoption, and so on. So let us try to understand some of them, because it is a very complex in nature. For instance, when one is looking at the debates on the marriage, the laws are there of the marriage and divorce, and it has been enacted and codified in the diverse forms, to different people. It applies to different people, and if we look further that those acts which are there, in order to understand the composition of the marriage institution in country like India, the number of laws follows, and let me tell you the sequence of that. Now, the Converts Marriage Dissolution Act of 1866, the Indian Divorce Act of 1869, the Indian Christian Marriage Act of 1872, the Qazi Act of 1880, the Anand Marriage Act of 1900, the Indian Succession Act eventually in 1925, Child Marriage Restraint Act of 1929, the Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act of 1936. So you would see that the dissolution of the Muslim Marriage Act of 1939, the Special Marriage Act of 1954, which came into existence after India's independence, the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955, and then the Foreign Marriage Act of 1969, and the Muslim Women Protection of the Rights on the Divorce, which the act was there in 1986, and now most recently in 2019 that there is the addition of the triple talaq, which is done by the government, which is a very significant in nature, and one has to understand this. So these are the few one which I cited, because I do not, because as I said that it is a very complex to understand. So let me take out some of the insights of the Hindu Marriage Act. The effort was constantly done to codify the customary laws, and that is prevalent among the Hindus. The Hindu Marriage Act of 1955, if we really look at the ways in which that the sequence had been happening, we have to also go back to the 19th century, because as the feminists pointed out in 70s onwards, that the entire insight which we taken forward in 70s onwards, by 1970s onwards by the feminists, is that they are actually deriving from the 19th century, because we have a rich history of the social reform movements in which that the gender question, particularly the women's question, and the laws were taken into consideration. So now if we look at the 1955 laws, then those who are a Hindu domicile living in the territories, and those it applies to them. It also applies to the people who are staying outside the territories. And you would see that eventually there is a time and again the changes have been happened. Now under the Hindu Marriage Act, the categories like Buddhists, Sikhs, Jains and so on also are part of that. Now if we look at again under the Hindu Marriage Act, section 27 of the 8, you would see that there is a Special Marriage Act also, and these provisions have been given also in order to understand the Special Marriage Act also and the divorce. And you would see that the ways in which that it is engaging us further to deal with Special Marriage Act of 1954, which again extended to entire country in India. So for instance, like through this act, if a person is governed, a person in order to understand that they can register the marriage under this act, and then you would see that he or she may be from the different religious faith, they can go for the marriage. Now this act also done under it also sort of provides that under under this marriage that there are other types and then forms, and under that one can register. So if it is a and then therefore it satisfied the requirements of the people who wanted to go under this, that the provisions have been given. So and I already informed you that under this provision that also the divorce can be given, and section 13 of the Hindu Marriage Act and 27, as I mentioned to you, Special Marriage Act, these debates have been there. Now the question is that, is there a common ground? Yes, there is a common ground in which that a divorce can be sought by husband or wife. And broadly the categories fall under this, that the adultery, distortion, cruelty, unsoundness of the mind, vulnerable disease, leprosy, and there are several reasons actually given under this. If one has to go under this, and so you would see that under the Hindu Marriage Act there is a Special Marriage Act, and then you go for the divorce, you go for the marriage. So now further that one has to understand, because as I already said that it's a plural society in which all kinds of religion, faiths, people live together. So if one has to look at Christian community, the provisions are given relating to the marriage and divorce, and under the Christian Marriage Act of 1872, under section 10, which one would see that further in 1869 the Indian Divorce Act is also there previously, and then Indian Marriage Act also is there. So under this section that the husband can divorce on grounds to the wives, and the grounds would be that adultery or as I mentioned to you, or converted to the other religion. So or found a woman found guilty on some of the issues like bigamy, marriage with the other, and the woman can also go for this, because there is also significant issues which emerge, and there is a very important judgment which the Supreme Court way back given to Mary Roy when it was dealing with the the question of the Christian Women's Marriage and Divorce Act. You would see that it can be other way around, that the man is involved with the adultery, and therefore rape, sodomy, bestiality, and there are sections. So and one would see that in order to understand this, that she or he is entitled to the divorce. And it's a, since that the Christianity actually comes from particularly that Europe. So there are again the codification which one has to see the whole debate, the Greek tradition, in order to understand, because the ways in which church was functioning. So, or the churches used to use. So, one has to also see that the system of the divorce, given by the Roman Catholic Church. So, it's like equivalent, because when one is looking at, the personal laws, there's always been the customary and, these debates emerge on and off, and then judicial separation on the grounds of adultery practices, or cruelty. These are some of the issues which are again very significant in order to understand, and this can be the ground for the divorce also. The Indian Divorce Act of 1869, then which is there, and again it has been time and again, because we have a law commission. If you go to the Government of India site, you would see that there have been time and again the changes have been done. In this, and in 2001, that number of changes have been done, and there were discriminatory provisions which was there for the woman in order to give the divorce. So there is also been a hierarchy, the ways in which it was operating, it was removed. And you must always update checking the Government of India site, the Law Commission's report, because they played a significant role, and then whatever changes happens, the Ministry of Law and the Government of India, they notify it through Gazette every time. So one has to also see that when the new amendments were there in section 36 and 41, the marriage laws, and particularly Amendment Act 2001, which is there, and one has to see the maintenance, education of the minor child. These are the debates which are there, and then one has to respond also to these debates very categorically is mentioning. In order to understand the Muslim marriage, which is again a very complex issue, because there are different kinds of schools, the ways in which it operates, and if we look at, it's called the Mohammedan law prevalent in the country, and as I mentioned to you, the major contribution is the 2019 in the talaq, triple talaq, which is done away by the government. And this is something that, because it was already in previously it was an unwritten traditional law, and the ways in which that it was interpreted, so it was again sort of that putting down the Muslim woman. But there is a lot of changes which has been done by the government, and one would see that traditionally what they used to call it talaq-e-tafwid, which has also brought, which is in fact dealing with the question of the divorce, so that the husband have a right, and then he can divorce in the marriage. And as in Islam, marriage is a contract, so it can be that the contract can be cancelled, or the husband can divorce the first wife, and as per that, look at what I'm trying to say is that the husband can take a divorce, and it was sort of very conveniently he used to do. So there are three forms, and then khula is something in which that the woman can actually go and say to the husband that she doesn't want to stay, and she can break those break that contract. So one has to also see, and then there is also period mutual consent, which they do it, the third form, and further that according to the Muslim Marriage Act of 1939, the certain laws have been given, because one has to also understand the ways in which that the laws have been codified during the colonial period. And if you look at these debates very carefully, follow the 19th and early 20th century, the ways in which the the reformers from each community evolved, but by and large that the major reforms have been done in the Hindu laws, not to the other laws, because it's again been depend on the very stringent categories which are there, and then how it has been interpreted also become very significant. So one has to see this, and in order to understand further the Parsi marriage and the Divorce Act of 1936, which governs the relationship with matrimonial relations among the Parsis. Now Parsis are something that which came from Middle East, and they are the Zoroastrian, and you can hardly see that, because if we go by the 2001 census, the numbers are decreasing, highly decreasing. The population number is very less. They do believe on the philosophy and practicing of the Zoroastrian religion. And among the Parsis also, that the race plays a crucial role, and you would see that it's not so easy to in the Parsi, according to the Parsi Marriage Act of 1936, that to get separated or to get divorced or to marry any person outside the Parsi community, it's a very difficult. I mean, one can always go for the, as I mentioned, under the Special Marriage Act, which is significantly part of the Hindu Marriage Act, which is given. But then how the community respond to that matters a lot end of the day. However, that one has to also see that the Act provides only the monogamy, and there is then the amendment done in the Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act in 1988, and further one would see that how it is extended further also. So there are also certain sections like section 3949 of the Parsi Marriage or Divorce Act included, and also further, as I said to you, the Law Commission looks into this, and there's always been a demand from individual women by filing the cases and one can always see very critically the case laws to understand each of the personal laws, how one is going through. And one has to also see that there are new changes done also from the Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act in 1936, and it was amended, and then the marriage laws under that 2001 Act also is there. As you know that 1929 is one of the very important law was passed, and during the 19th century the child marriage was predominant across the country, and Raja Ram Mohan Rai, Lord Bentinck, they did an intervention, and the Child Marriage Restraint Act of 1929 also emerged. At the same time, the reformers like Jyotirao Phule also played a very significant role bringing this provisions into that. And also the sati marriage, against the sati also the marriages, the act was passed. So one has to also say that among all these personal laws, that adoption of the children, because is a very again important issue, and the Hindu Adoption and the Maintenance Act was passed in 1959. And one would see that the ways in which that customs were actually there evolved, and sometimes it becomes very predominantly that the adoption of or the legal affiliation of the child. So it was not as earlier there, but then it was a subject to the matter of the personal laws, but eventually it evolved and it brought out, if we look at the 1955 Hindu Marriage Act, that the ways in which the provision has been done. Now, if we look at the Muslim, Christian and Parsis, the ways in which it evolved us, so the guardianship or the Watts Act of 1890s also is there, in which that the foster child is there, and then how do we engage with this foster child? You can always look after that. At the same time that under the adoption, that the foreigners who wish to adopt, they also fall under these acts, and under the Hindu law then the adoption is given. Again it's further codified in 1956 onwards, and then one would see that the legal capacity that even further the daughter can also be taken in the adoption. I'm just telling you the background of this because there's a lot of changes done in the laws time and again, and one would see that the ways in which the legal system evolves, there's a constant effort by the feminists in order to understand that, and there's also a need of the time, because when the incidences are happening, then one is approaching to the court and trying to put an effort to bring out the changes. So there's also been a demand constantly from the feminist group, feminist movement, and the people who are engaging, who are progressive in sort of like taking the position on that which benefits and which in fact deals with the equality. So one has to understand in all these cases that the ways in which that law is evolving, because as per the every this thing there is a segregation, and like for instance, like when one is taking looking at the Islamic law tradition, among the Sunnis and Shias also the different faiths are there. As I said to you that there is different school of thought, so there is a matter of interpretation also, the ways in which it has been engaged, and one can go into a detail each one of them when I'm specifically going to deliver specific lecture on each laws. So I would just conclude that through this, that the different laws were existing in the colonial period, and one has to sort of understand that time and again after the independence, the ways in which that the groups, the government, political parties which are evolving under each laws, and the law commissions have been set up every time to look into the changes which there is a demand actually. I just want to conclude by saying and acknowledging this website that the argument which I have drawn is from www.legalservicesindia.com, and you must always keep in touch to have a look at the Government of India site, where the time and again the law commissions have been set up and brought out the changes. There are working papers and the ways in which that there are amendments happening. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Thank you very much.